Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank APRESID. Pilu, thank you very much for trusting me. Thank you, Pedro. And even though we might say obvious things, sometimes obvious things become invisible. Should we talk about the countryside or the city? No, that's precisely why we have this title, Quo Vadis. I'm not talking only about the President of Argentina, but the members of the different councils, municipalities, parliament, etc. This panel was created as a result of the resolution that was passed in 2008. You lived that conflict closely. Good morning, everyone. Thank you again, APRESID. It's true. Through Canal Rural, we lived those times when we saw that there was no participation of the agro-industrial and farming sector in general. We learned from that and we're increasingly growing in terms of representation of the sector in the different areas. We have to join to participate in decision-making where big political decisions are made. And communication is key, as you said at the beginning, something that seems so obvious. And in spite of that, this is what we have been missing for years. And short steps are being taken, but we need much more. And this is why we're here, to reflect that and especially to make our contribution to society. I think we are all proud of what we do in an indulgence manner, but we're here to tell society what's being done, because it's important for society to know that this country will move forward with the support of agri-industry. I will first give the floor to a topic which I hope will become the most important topic looking forward, Vaca Muerta. Santiago, go ahead. Thank you, APRESID, and thank you everyone for being here this morning so early. I'm very happy to come back to my dear Rosario. I started professionally here a couple of decades ago, so I'm always happy to come back. Mentioning Vaca Muerta is almost a cliche. I don't know whether there's anyone who has not heard about Vaca Muerta, which means dead cow. A cow that died and that was discovered almost 100 years ago. This community is a group of friends, and I will start in a politically incorrect manner. I would say that Vaca Muerta is what? Is it a good thing? Is it a blessing? Or is it a curse? This is just to wake you up and to challenge the concepts that come up in our discussions very frequently. I'm going to be brief. I usually take too long. You have 18 minutes and 57 seconds, so take your time. So I can talk about my family then. What can I tell you about Vaca Muerta? Well, I'll tell you how this arrived in Argentina and the world. Some years ago, not so many years ago, the world and Argentina were and are still going through the energy transition. What does this mean? That the old energy approach that the developed world had taken for many decades has started to suffer. Why? Because the environmental aspects are becoming increasingly important, climate change, global warming, and humankind, and finally politics took over, and a gradual reduction process was set up in the use of fossil fuel, which is what has the highest impact on climate deterioration. This transition reflects a world whose combustion engine tends to disappear, and the world of the future will be an electric world. Electricity will be the big engine of society that already exists today. This forces us to think of a transition mechanism. That's a global concept. The second concept is more of an Argentinian concept. Over the last few years, as a result of a bad combination of policies and incentives, Argentina wasted, in a demagogic manner, a whole energy capital it had built for many years. As a result of that, both oil and gas reserves were depleted, and at the same time, the generation park was depleted. That is, for 10 years, no significant investments were made in infrastructure, and the stimuli and the signals were just the opposite than those that were needed. And we had two effects that I'm sure Javier will be able to correct if I'm wrong. First of all, significant tax impact. Most of the fiscal deficit was the result of the waste and the need to subsidize consumers such as myself. For 10 years, I paid a crazy, absurd electricity bill. Secondly, the second dramatic impact was for public accounts, because the sector stopped generating currency. This is what happened at the end of the 90s and beginning of the year 2000, and it became a currency demanding sector. We're not providing incentives to extract gas in Neuquén that cost $4 or $5 million, 1 million BTU, and we're bringing gas from Bolivia at around 10. And what is even worse, we're bringing liquefied natural gas at $15. That was the economic logic that prevailed in Argentina at the time. That was the time when we started talking about Vaca Muerta. As you may know, it is a geologic structure, an oil field. I'm really not a specialist. I don't know what the structure really is like. But we know this was discovered in the 30s or 40s. It's almost 80 or 90 years old. But at about 2010, it started to become the focus for Argentina and for the rest of the world. Why did it become interesting? Because it is a non-conventional field. According to the old approach, gas and oil were in kind of pools, so you had to find those pools or sinks and drill them. With non-conventional geology, you have clay or rocks embedded in oil and gas. A fracking process is necessary to generate compression, explosion, etc., and to extract oil and gas. This happens because of obvious technology breakthroughs, technology to make these fields profitable helped us a lot. And initially, the United States led this process. Vaca Muerta is the third world non-conventional gas reserve and the fifth non-conventional oil reserve. That is, we compete with the U.S., China, and Canada even though we are there a little bit behind the U.S. in terms of development, quite behind the U.S. Argentina has the advantage of being the second best student. The best student is the United States. They have achieved outstanding know-how and development, but Argentina is the second best student, and being the best student and having good geological conditions means that Argentina is more attractive than other non-conventional fields. So what does Vaca Muerta mean? Vaca Muerta, within this context, means several things. First of all, it is, in terms of gas, it represents the consumption of Argentina during 200 years. It's not that it's 5 years of consumption, it's 200 years of consumption. And in terms of oil, the figures are so high that they're difficult to measure because consumption of oil in Argentina is much smaller than gas. But it's a very important oil field. What else does Vaca Muerta mean? Over the last 10 years of development, several things have been achieved. First of all, the Argentinian energy balance was reversed. In 2015, our import-export deficit was $5 billion. And not this year, but next year, we'll reach a balance in terms of imports and exports. That's one thing. On the other hand, this is a cluster that is generating approximately 100,000 qualified jobs. On the other hand, it is also true that there are some relatively low investments, let's say $5 to $8 billion a year. But if certain things happen, and politics has a lot to say about this, but these figures will really take a leap. We are at the beginning of a bogan, and we will take a big leap very soon. Vaca Muerta in gas and in oil, in 5 or 7 years, if the necessary investments are made, investments should double from $10 to $15 billion a year. 3 points of our GDP, this is what Vaca Muerta should mean. For 2025, by 2025, exports might get to amazing figures. It is getting closer to the impact of agriculture and cattle breeding in Argentina. There's another concept which is also very important, and it is the fact that rates were subsidized for 10 years with unresponsible energy subsidies that led to a big deficit. This deficit was tackled in 2 different ways. On the one hand, by acknowledging that those rates were not real, were not sustainable. Paying 10% of the cost is not sustainable in any country. Could you please say that again? When this government took over, what we were paying at home accounted for 10% of the cost of electricity. 90% was subsidized, and everyone was subsidized, the poor and the rich. Javier can explain this much better. This is called inflation. I'm not going to talk about this. Inflation is a big subsidy granted by the poor to the rich. And how can this be worked out? Well, by updating the rate. We all suffer from this because we had to reallocate our resources. And on the other hand, what happened was equally important. The government carried out two strategies. On the one hand, they promoted the production of fields such as Vaca Muerta that can supply the fuel that we used to import. We can now supply product at 3 rather than at 10, and fuel is half the cost of the electric rate. So you can see the impact of having fuel in your country, and cheap fuel. It's not expensive fuel, but cheap fuel. So on the one hand, this was achieved. We stopped importing fuel oil for winter, and we are producing gas to avoid liquid fuel, which pollutes the world, is very expensive, and we're no longer importing natural liquefied gas to bring fuel from Vaca Muerta.
And the second is the generation cluster. What is the tool that we use to transform gas into electricity? I have my own experience. We are bringing state-of-the-art technology in order to enable the energy efficiency to make quantum leaps. Just to understand this, in the past, it was very expensive for public accounts, many dollars, and the megawatt per hour was above $100. Today, in the current scenario, the one we are going to, we generate foreign currency, we remove fiscal deficit, or revenue deficit. And now we are generating an industry from an industry. We have competitive industry, we have sustainable trade, and we have a better quality of life. The cost of more than $100 the megawatt will go down to $40 per megawatt. The truth is that we have to pay for that now. You have a social rate, and this is a sensitive issue. All this virtuous process is the nice part, is the shiny part of this story. When you tell investors what Vaca Muerta means, I'm very proud of this activity because we are constantly in contact with the rest of the world that funded the whole project I shared. When we talk about Vaca Muerta, we really are enlightened. We are very happy because it's a treasure for us. It's a check. It is there. If we agree on a number of things, it's easy to access to it. I think that this is the topic we are discussing today. And it makes sense now, and probably in the future we will start talking about a second thing, this wealth, this huge treasure available for us. Are we going to use it correctly? In other words, being wealthy is equal to being wise. Having a wealth implies necessarily makes us have access to sustainable development. And I leave this message. In the past few years, the world has given a number of examples of societies that had to face this situation. It's clear that Norway is not the same as Venezuela. It's not the same as Nigeria or Libya. And in terms of treasures that had to be discovered and that became available to them are very similar to what Argentina is facing today. Therefore, and here I will talk about the second part, this blessing, this gift that nature gave us entails a question. Are we using this for the correct purpose? Are we considering this with the importance of the significance that we need to give to it after we have received this heritage? Are we discussing the correct thing? There is an interesting debate that has been started by the authority. This is the Vaca Muerta Production Roundtable. This is a very productive group, and all the stakeholders, all the players in production participate, people from the trade unions. Really much progress has been achieved in order to have access to the treasure, to be able to extract the treasure and to create the structure that this treasure needs. I just give an example of the primary use of this treasure. We really made a mistake. We committed an unforgivable sin at early 2000s. We disregarded agreements with Chile. Chile built up its energy matrix when Argentina started providing gas. And we can all remember how or to what extent Argentina disregarded these agreements. And really, Chile was impacted with this. So they had to change the matrix, and they had to adapt to a very expensive, the import on very expensive inputs, as it is liquefied gas. Oil can be stored, gas cannot be stored. We were able to reopen gas ducts or passes with Chile, and we were able to evacuate the gas that we have plenty of it, and we were able to pay a debt that we have with our neighbors, with the Chileans.
Santiago.
Thank you, Santiago. Probably we will try to answer questions from the audience, and I wonder what will Argentina do with that check. It's so difficult to provide funds to that document, but it will be dangerous having that check. We have the example Norway and Venezuela. What did Norway did and what did Venezuela do? We know what current expenditure is, and we know how much has been spent in Argentina in not precisely a virtuous money. We don't in a virtuous way. We have to talk about current investment. Roberto Bisain, he's an expert in economy. He will take the floor.
Bueno, mientras tanto agradezco si me ayudan para poner el power que no sé dónde quedó.
In the meantime, I'll.
Ahí está. Espero invocarlo. Bueno.
We'll say thank you. Thank you for this invitation. I'm expected to talk about heritage too. We received also the biological heritage. I'm from Córdoba, genetics, pepperina, and some natural resources. We also received lithium and other variables that has also been inherited. With the idea of rethinking about Quo Vadis, which brings us together to think into the future. I will make some reflections. Where are we going when the heritage were received, considering the basic requests from Argentina? What is the society requesting from production? But basically they request employment. This is obvious, but we need to know that there's 20% of people outside the screen. It also requires payment balance. It also requires efficiency, and now we add to this environmental sustainability. So those that from vaca muerta, dead cow, from the rest of us, a living cow, need to provide balanced production. This is a sort of federal economy, so probably somebody else will refer to this. It's also a requesting the productive sector to have a platform with a productive structure. The four initial problems have to do with productive structure of Argentina. If you don't have a productive structure which is based in doing things on the spot, we cannot ask anything for the future. The productive structure that we have, that we were able to obtain in the past 30 years, is part of the past, but provides the basis for building the future. What we are investing today will be reflected in 5 or 10 years' time. The funny thing is that this turns out to be ironic in a way. When I started to attend the university 30 or 40 years ago, the problem is the balance of payment. The problem has to do with energy, and the problem has to do with capital. We need to come up with a structure to provide a response. And so we started with this idea of development. It's so ironic is that even names are repeated every 2 generations. I won't name anybody, but you know what I'm talking about. How do we imagine?
De vaca muerta, Santiago lo tiene claro.
The development trend with this living cow. I think that the concept of bioeconomy fits here. Bioeconomy is the son of Villa Maria in grain. You can do cracking with the corn, not cracking, because you will have CO2, you will have forage, you will raise animals, then you will produce manure, and with the manure you can generate energy. So we are not talking about agriculture as such, as a producer of food. We are considering agriculture as a producer of biomass. If I give the example with soybean, I will have soybean glycerol, biofuel, glycerol. Next year, bioplastics derived from glycerol. This occurs in Rosario, Santa Fe. So, a cracking matrix based on biology, which is completely different. And this brings me to a second item I want to talk about. What we are talking about when we talk about industry and we refer to bioeconomics. The industrialization of biomass, and people imagine the idea of progress together with industry. Now we have an open pit industry, and biology starts to have an important role. How do we think about industry? Do you remember these items? Very old items. This is the lever of Somisa. We here see the disc recorder. We see the refrigerator. We see the Torino car. This is understood by people who are over 60. 20 years later, we started to have basic impulse plants. This was state-of-the-art technology, Aluar plant, Papel Prensa plant, Proferti plant, Dow plants, and that was in the 80s and in the 90s, plus the crushing facilities that we know in this area. This is what happened with our industrial culture. But what did we learn in the past 15 years? This is the Renova plants, the largest in the world with a very high crushing capacity. This is a wonderful piece of engineering. And then other new plants appeared, Bio4, Dicer. Here we do cracking of corn. We are not talking of cracking of inert material. This is living material. And these plants ran $40–60 million, represent the future of the new bioeconomy. And you wonder, is this agriculture, is this industry, and ultimately, what is this for? Why are we discussing about urban society, rural society? This sort of interferes in our way, and it brings into the scene divergence or disagreements among Argentinas. San Miguel in Citrusville also show the bioeconomy in the provinces. We also have Biogenesis Bagó, Platex, which is a textile company, which is it is on the other end of biological manufacturing. First, we started with the cheap oil in the YPF. They are in the top right corner. The second generation was in gas Goma La Lata. We really ended up we consumed it in the past 20 years. All these plants are energy intensive. We were able to export this to our neighbors. And the question is how we will keep the cows closed, the dead cow and the living cow. And industrialization is based on that. I think that this is the debate matrix for Quo Vadis in the next 10 years. That has to do with a sustainable primary agricultural production. And here some question arises. Sustainable matrix to drive the change towards bioeconomy. What is it? What do I have now? I have these three deficit basic sectors in Argentina when I relate to the world. Electronics, automotive, and chemistry or chemical industry, and this has been made up in Argentina. Means that has to do with assembling. When with this situation, I don't have the possibility to generate employment. How can we crack corn, I can crack sorghum, I can introduce cracking of soybean or sugarcane, and I have to add the idea of green chemistry. We should ask this to the people from Pergamino, Villa María, Cañada Rosquil, Río Cuarto, Rafaela. This generates much more local employment, and it disconcentrates the distribution of companies. Therefore, we will be able to have a more sustainable democracy, and we will also be more equitable in the distribution of wealth. Where is politics here? The politics or policies have to do of how we build the bridge between these two things. We already have things that have been done already, so we shouldn't waste what we already have. So part of the political construction, starting from the basis of private institutions and political institutions, are responsible for thinking what we are going to do in the future with this question, Quo Vadis, and so they are responsible for building this bridge. When I go to everyday life and I go down to the economy that we read in social media, every day we ask, what is Argentina promoting today? Where are the incentives? Probably we could talk about a lack of incentives, but I didn't want to mention the lack of incentives. Today we have a promotion system on electronics industry, automotive system or promotion of automotive industry that comes back from 1961. The economists have lots of data to evaluate the impact, and an economist can really understand the numbers or figures and determine how many jobs these different chains are able to generate. The soybean chain generates a lot of jobs, both downstream and upstream. These are complete production chains that are generating a significant amount of jobs. This has an aspect of taxes also, but we can talk about these systems that make an intensive use of energy, petrochemistry, steel, aluminum, were able to develop in Argentina with promotion systems. We need to think timing, cost, benefits, and what we learned with the old promotion system. I think that it is a good thing to look back into the past and learn from that. We have the systems in some provinces that have been left behind, and there is lots of horizontal arrangements or negotiations, probably that related with taxes, related with customs, some trades-off that are not included in the budgets, but people who are acquainted with Argentine industrial economy are aware of. And finally, we have this idea that we should be renewed regarding biological items and need to think about Vaca Muerta as well.
Fundamental issues. We have an agenda of everyday issues And if you set up this agenda, you will find enemies in Spanish, Italian, Armenian, and several other communities that will tell you, I have acquired rights. Well, that's the real key of politics in Argentina. What are we talking about? We're talking about those concepts. To conclude, some final thoughts that are, I think, are cautiously hopeful. When we copied the Falcon brand or the Puma motorcycle or the Pampa tractor, we started with a 30 to 40 years delay. Now in bioeconomy and the corn cracking, I'm not sure whether we are running head to head, but we are running in the US NBA, that's for sure. The fact that there are around 20 GENIC edition events recorded at the Ministry of Agriculture, or whatever its name is today, shows that we are already there. When you talk to a young person here and you ask him how phosphorus is solubilized, he can immediately think of 3 papers, and that is worth a lot. Secondly, we have to align and coordinate the public sector before calling upon the private sector, because you have the province, the national government, the municipalities, and the person who receives the message on the other side sometimes doesn't know which door he has to knock at. This is why sometimes we need to have a better public coordination before getting into the public-private level. Third, corporate basis, whether we like it or not, with a more or less selective criteria. Argentina today has a group of companies that are very familiar with bioeconomy. I would even dare say that there are several dozens of corporate groups with a certain technology level that are working for transformation, bioenergy, biomaterial, cattle, and it is promising data. When we have the data of the survey, we will be able to be more accurate. For now, we just know these are big trends. And we need to improve the SME basis. Obviously, we all know this. It's politically correct. And we also have to consider that the big multinational companies are present here. And they are part of the game. And you can do 3 things about it. Ignore them, which is dangerous. Face them, which is even more dangerous. Coordinate what they do, which is much more sensible. So I think this has to be considered in policy development. And then there's also the productive basis. There is an interesting biotechnology basis. There is an interesting GENIC basis. Argentina has over 2,000 farms, cattle breeding farms, and every day it is registering hundreds of GENIC editions. So productive base, as the great soccer philosopher says, the base is apparently there. And we also need production platforms, because when you have corn cracking, you see that some technologies are used that can also be used in other biologic processes for other crops. And when you see selective through GENIC addition, this is done cross-sectionally at the vegetable, at the plant, and animal level. So this is precision cattle breeding besides precision farming, thanks to China. My last thought, in this case, I have a question without an answer. How will vaca muerta, dead cow, living cow, lithium cow or any other cow live all together. I think we are reaching a basic agreement. That is, that we have to start thinking of how to generate the chains upstream and downstream, because the ultimate goal of this socially relevant exercise is to create a much more diversified productive matrix. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Pisani. And before we get to our next speaker, I'd like to remind you that you can ask questions over WhatsApp or SMS to the cell phone that you can see on the screen. 341, 315, 8191. You can text messages over SMS or WhatsApp. And at the end of the panel, if there's time, the moderators will read the questions. Jorgelina, I was listening to Roberto quite carefully. He was talking about vaca muerta, that is dead cow, living cow. I hope that Argentina will not take vacations, because I remember when you talked about genic editing, you see that all industries, Gerardo Bartolomé has just quit. He's part of a sector that's very important for Argentina, and the last interesting investment was made in Brazil, because Argentina does not have a consistent, modern, daring seed act. And this is a $50 million investment. As to genic editing, Argentina today has a huge opportunity. You also mentioned China. So Argentina has some advantage for some years. Absolutely. We'll have to keep going this way. And you said that we are part of the MBA in bioeconomy. I love that, because I played basketball when I was a teenager. And the truth is that it is amazing when we find circular economy, bioeconomy in the different provinces. It's important for us to understand that we are promoting this, and that's the way to go. Well, let's continue. Entrepreneurship with Mr. Juan Barrero. Welcome, Juan. Thank you. Thank you, Pilu, Pedro, and Aprecid. I'm not sure why they invite me to talk about entrepreneurs, having such outstanding speakers here. But I'll try to at least share my vision, what I have seen over the last few years, and I'd also like to share some experiences as a result of my work as an entrepreneur in institutions, organizations, as part of the youth movement. Well, I'm no longer that youth. I hope I will retire before they leave me out, but the idea is to leave room for centennials. The millennials have to leave space and room for centennials. Where Alicia Siciliani, the minister, is here, and she is saying this is not correct. Well, we will keep involved, but we have to leave room for the new generations who already think differently from the millennials, from the baby boomers, the centennials. These Quo Vadis collective spaces demand that we look at one another and consider everyone's realities, learnings, and styles. I have not prepared a specific presentation, but I'll try to share some ideas with you. Entrepreneurship is an attitude. It's a lifestyle. It's a way in which we face our life, the way in which we see our things, the world, our life. And it might be a housewife, it might be myself, I am an accountant, or it might be a person working in a company or somebody in the public sector. The entrepreneurial attitude is related to identifying issues, getting enthusiastic about them, and trying to find a solution to them. That's where you have to find resiliency, where you have to accept failure, where you have to learn. Entrepreneurs are those people who are continuously going behind a solution. This is what I perceive and what all of us do in our everyday lives. I have to talk about entrepreneurs, but there are many entrepreneurs, and being an entrepreneur means being resilient. And when we talk of business entrepreneurs, this is not something that anyone can do. It is very difficult to create a company, to move it forward. It requires lots of effort, and especially these resiliency capabilities. You need to be willing to fail, to frustrate, to be sad, to know that things may not work out. I have been trying to do things for 10 years. I've been trying to generate value wherever I am. But on the way you find lots of difficulties. And not all of us are willing to face those failures, fears, frustration, being out of your comfort zone at all times. Sometimes you feel lonely, entrepreneurs sometimes feel lonely. On the one hand, I think not everyone can be and wants to be an entrepreneur, even though I think if we talk of the education of the future, people say that education has to focus on entrepreneurial capabilities and skills. If we want Argentina to move forward, to develop, to evolve, we will have to generate more of these capacities. On the other hand, in order to be an entrepreneur, you also need a certain context. I have been an entrepreneur in a context where the worst thing that could happen was, well, this was my father's accounting firm in Trenquelauquen. So my context was better than the context many others had. But I was lucky to be surrounded by several people. When I started being an entrepreneur, I listened to a presentation made by Santiago many years ago. I'm seeing Fabio, Pilu, and many people who opened up doors to me, and I started to be close to people who taught lots of things to me, and being surrounded by certain people who can teach you things all the time is very important. Sometimes people tell me, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to do something, but sometimes people have no ideas, or they may fail with those ideas. But one of the important ways is to say, well, go and work with another entrepreneur who has already failed, who can teach you all those lessons so that your learning curve will be shorter. When I started working in the farming sector, well, people say that you are the average of the 5 people you spend more time with. You're an average of those 5 people. So choosing a person when you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to be better, if you want to overcome an obstacle or solve a problem, then you have to be surrounded by people who can teach you things. So the more you're surrounded by people who are better than you are, who can teach you things, the better. If we are in a context where there are no incentives, where people are not learning, studying, then we will not be able to move forward either. And this is an ecosystem. We have to strengthen our ecosystems, and this is what will lead for opportunities, ideas, and those crazy people who have ideas to work out those problems will eventually have a context that will contain them, and especially will give them access to knowledge, to capital, which is key to create any project. I'm going to break the protocol because I have a question. If you look at Santiago, Santiago went out to the world to find a bond over $600 million, a lot. And it was like a 25-year-old student leaving college with his first project. You could see that in his eyes. In order to be an entrepreneur, you need to have lots of skills, effort, work, knowledge, study, skills, because otherwise it looks like being an entrepreneur is a trendy thing and that anyone can be an entrepreneur. What do you think about that? Well, being an entrepreneur is not something anyone can do. Today you hear about Silicon Valley, unicorns, but that's not everyone's reality. This is why the context plays a huge role. Now, the context depends on you too. I can be in Jujuy or in Tierra del Fuego and generate that context. Today, the world opens up opportunities for us. It's never been so easy to create a company, to connect to the rest of the world, to access knowledge and capital. It's never been so easy. This is a time where I provide professional services. My father would never have thought of providing international services from Trenquelauque, not even to the rest of the country. Today, there are no boundaries. So being an entrepreneur is becoming increasingly easy, but you have to set the context yourself. And you have to leave your comfort zone at all times. You have to be surrounded by people who can teach things to you. You have to generate that context. There are a million cases of people who from the province of Jujuy, such as Google Metrics, they are developing technology in Jujuy for the world. And the entrepreneurs themselves generate the context, even if in Jujuy there's not yet a solid ecosystem. So that public and private institutions, the academia, people who want to make risky investments, but they generate the environment themselves. I think that's key. It's key for entrepreneurs to generate that context. Now the question is, how can Argentina generate a better context for these things to happen? And that's related to several restrictive factors that we see in Argentina today. The rules of the game, tax pressure. In terms of tax pressure, if I am to develop my company in a globalized economy, tax pressure plays a key role in competitiveness. So if I have to compete with players from other countries, then tax pressure will favor my job or will go against what I do. So as an Argentine entrepreneur, if I do not find the right context in Argentina, if we do not generate the context ourselves, then it will be very difficult to achieve those developments in Argentina. I'm not an expert in this. Maybe the other speakers can tell us how that context can be generated better than I can. But if we do not generate that, then entrepreneurship and the goodness about entrepreneurship will not become true. And if we talk of limits, if we talk of bioeconomy, creating a biotechnology company is becoming increasingly easier too. Today there are many entrepreneurs thanks to accelerators, thanks to people who are trying to do these things. 10 years ago, creating a technology company cost much more than what it costs today. Today it's much easier to generate a disruptive technology. And the same things will happen with biotechnology. Access will become increasingly easier. People in the science field will start to see entrepreneurship as an opportunity because investors will not retain their rights or patents, so that you can own the patents yourself. So the fear that somebody will steal my patent will disappear. Many scientists think that this is what may happen. Bioeconomy will also change And we should not take vacations. We should start to align our country with our plan looking forward. And finally, I think it is important to point out that I've been working with organizations for a long time. The world needs more organizations. It is difficult to do teamwork in Argentina. We have a hard time there. There is a lot of leadership, but little collective thinking. That is a restricting factor, and if we do not work that out, then that will be a difficulty. So institutions or organizations are a place where Santiago and myself can be part of the Christian business people association, so we can build trust. And once you have the trust, you can start building collective thinking, because even if we think differently, we know each other. And the institutions are a fora for people to get to know one another, to generate a common vision. And once you have a vision, it is much easier to act. I'd like to point out that we have to get involved, because we cannot keep playing the leadership game. We have to get involved. We have to participate in organizations. We need more people to get involved, because, in short, the more of us who get involved, the better the results and the better the decisions, and the world needs those decisions. And then, finally, Pilu asked me, what do you think about what may happen in 5 or 10 years' time? I really don't know what will happen in 5 years' time. I know that there are some things that we should not do again, with more proactive leadership, horizontal organizations, but we also need business people who will not only create value for shareholders. The new entrepreneur should also create value for society as a whole. Entrepreneurs should be those who see the social challenges and those who can create solutions and businesses based on that. And I think that's a new business model we have to go for. This is why Sistema B and companies with a purpose aim at, to align your purpose in life with your professional purpose. And this has to be done by people in the private sector, in the public sector, by employees. Your purpose in life has to be aligned with your professional purpose, so that we can transcend. Someone once told me whether I remember the name of my grandparents, and I didn't. My great-grandparents. But it's crazy to think that in 3 generations' time, nobody will remember that you were here at one point in time. So if we do not leave some legacy to others, if we do not improve our world, then things make no sense. I think business people should be clear about this. And I think there is increasing awareness among entrepreneurs and business people. I've never seen Santiago nod so many times while someone was talking. What were you thinking of, Santiago? I agree. First of all, I agree with them, because you're here to fulfill a purpose, a mission. The mission is related to others, not to yourself, but to the community, to the people who are around you, to those people who give us identity and values. So I absolutely agree with him, and it's moving to me too, because these are issues that, for a reason or for many reasons, these things are not discussed very widely in Argentina, and they should. Those are some topics that are not discussed here. And maybe that explains why we have what we have in our society and in our culture. It's very interesting, and it happens to me that I'm continuously linking everything that's happening here, and I find many common denominators. And I can see APRESID has organized this panel very well, because in Argentina there are many entrepreneurs. We all know that we have always had economic crises that have made us stronger to get afloat. We don't know how, but people from other parts of the world come here and they cannot do this. And that's a reality. I'm not sure whether we should feel proud of that, but at least we should acknowledge it, bear that in mind, and solve our problems. In the case of entrepreneurship, we should consider what he just said. Not anyone can be an entrepreneur. That's also part of acknowledging things. Juan said, lots of leadership and little collective work. So we have to start thinking of doing things together. Because if we only want to do things on our own, then it will not work. And there will not be room for everybody. Maybe we should partner, start working together, stop being selfish, stop saying, I have this technology in my farm and I'm going to use it myself. I'm not going to tell this to my neighbors because they will. Don't want them to have the same yield I have. So networking, collective entrepreneurship, maybe that's where we can find our capacity. We cannot do things on our own. Absolutely, networking is key. Networks are very important. You can feel that in the agricultural sector, ACREA, APRESID. You learn from others. That network is your context. By context, I mean that network, the network that encourages you to move forward. And I don't want to lie. I've known Juan for a long time. We met with Juan Martín Melo from La Pastelera as well. I've learned a lot from him. And we said, let's organize an agricultural meeting. Where can we do it? What if we do it at the planetarium? I think the planetarium is 100 years old. And for 100 years, an agricultural event has never been organized at the planetarium. And we said, let's do it. We're going to communicate something that's very virtuous. This idea came up during our meetings, and we're proud of that. That means being an entrepreneur, even though I'm not 20 years old, and you are not 20 either. Well, he's young anyway. He's young and nice and handsome. So my greetings to your girlfriend. Javier González Fraga, President of Banco Nación. Now the difficult part. I love this because I'm looking at Javier. He says it's not so easy. Javier, how can we fund entrepreneurs? Thank you very much, APRESID. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you for 30 years. It's a great age. Being 30 is great, but Juan, I also have to tell you that I left Central Bank when I was 41, and when I was 42, I started making dulce de leche, and it was quite a mess. But I got an award, so baby boomers are not thinking of retiring. And when I quit the Argentina's National Bank, I will not stop doing things. You don't need a certain age to be an entrepreneur, but a certain mindset. You need to, of course, embrace technology, adjust to the world, but being an entrepreneur does not mean being young. Thank you very much for inviting me to this panel. And again, I'd like to congratulate you for this very productive 30 years of life. It's great to share this panel with Juan, Santiago, and Roberto. And before you ask me about funding, I'd like to share some thoughts with you about what Roberto and Santiago said. Usually people will say Argentina with Vaca Muerta will have to choose between Norway and Nigeria. I have bad news for you. We'll be neither Norway nor Nigeria. We're going to be Argentina. We'll do things our way. Which doesn't mean that it's going to be better or worse, but we will range within our possibilities, because Vaca Muerta, as Javier said, is a 20-25 billion potential of new export. That's macroeconomic data. I know that we economists always ruin things with these things. 25 billion coming from private sector is a complication. Two things may happen here. This may just add to currency exchange supply. In this case, the money will appreciate, the currency will appreciate, and all the other activities, including agri-industry, biotechnology, will no longer be competitive, because we have already listened to Roberto. Now, if we have the whole of the wet pampas offering dollar, that will be an issue. How can this be solved, not the Norway way, but in a sensible way, maybe the Chilean way? Chile has done it with a mix of two factors, and that mix of two factors is what would turn Vaca Muerta into a blessing rather than a curse. Tax opening and opening, tax surplus and opening of the economy. If there is a tax surplus, the state will be able to buy half of what Vaca Muerta buys, and then we will resemble Chile or Norway without being Norway. For you to know what Norway is like, out of all the oil in the Northern Sea, Norway has generated a fiscal and social provision that is so high that today Norwegians retire with $1 million to be collected in installments. Why? Because their tax system is so strong. I'm not saying that Argentina will be like that. The situation in Chile is different. But we need two things. First of all, an important part of the trade surplus generated by Vaca Muerta has to be bought by the state with real resources. If it's bought with new money, there will be inflation. And the other half will have to go to imports. I've held several meetings with farmers, agri-industrial producers in Junín, Trenquelauquen, and the Rural Federation, and everyone's very concerned about our deal with the European Union, and they're thinking, what can we sell to them? And I tell them, think what we can buy from them. I come from the dairy sector, so I use that as an example. There are many types of cheese we are making that we will not be able to keep making. Parmesan cheese, blue cheese, camembert cheese. These are basically European cheese. It will probably come at a lower price from Europe, but we can have Tafí del Valle cheese, Mar del Plata cheese, Tandil cheese, with origin denomination. So let's think what we can sell, but let's also think what we can import, because we will be able to buy machinery to make cheese at very good financial rates. So think how competitive we will become. It's very important for us to generate import demand so as to be able to absorb Vaca Muerta surplus. We have to turn that into capital good imports. And I'm going back to something Roberto said quite lightly. He said that car promotion dates back to 1961. What a question. I think this is something to bear in mind. Will probably be neither Libya nor Angola nor Norway, and I hope we will be able to work things out correctly. I'm not sure whether we will be Venezuela. I don't think we will. I can give you an answer on Monday. I worked quite a lot in Venezuela in the 70s. And in the 70s, when nobody was talking about Chavez or Maduro, the Venezuelan society already had some features that make you think of what's happening today. I'm telling this because I think it's worth it. I was teaching at a place in the morning, a different place in the afternoon. This was 1976. And I became friend with a boy who would polish my shoes. And I asked him, why aren't you studying? And he said, why should I study? So that you can have a better life. And he told me, once I get my share of oil, I will no longer have to work. And the president at the time said, oil is for the Venezuelans. So the message was, you don't have to work to be rich. So the seed of authoritarian populism was already there at the time. And this evolved with Chavez and Maduro. We have to be careful. Now, what happens if we do things badly? Then we will go to populism. Vaca Muerta will generate inflation. Populism will expropriate some things. There will be obstacles, and we will have a mediocre experience that I hope is part of the past. But it is still a possibility. I will go to funding now because you asked me to talk about that. De Aquino worked with me at the board, as well as Mr. Castellani, who's still working with me in the board. They know I enjoy what I do. I take some opportunities. One of the opportunities I take to enjoy what I do is when a powerful business person comes to me to get good credit, I have fun by asking him or her, and do you put your savings in the National Bank? You should look at their faces. How can you ever think of myself placing my savings in Banco Nación? And my next question is, why don't you go to your bank to ask for a loan or for credit? And this same thing applies to our country, because the problem in Argentina is that interest rates are what they are, not because of Mr. Sanleris or because of minister's fault. It is what it is because of ourselves, who together as a society decided to place 80% of our savings abroad. If 80% of our savings are abroad, then there will be few loans in pesos, and it's going to be very expensive. There's going to be very little and very expensive because we Argentinians have decided to put our savings abroad. I'm not blaming you. I'm just describing a situation. This is not something illegal. It's just the result of 70 years of inflation. 13 zeros have been taken out of our currency. Some deposits have been turned into pesos. There has been private and public default. There's a long history as a result of which we Argentinians put our savings abroad. In these conditions, funding in pesos. Our financial system is 5 times smaller than the Chilean system, 4 times smaller than the Brazilian system, and 10 times smaller than the one of any developed countries. But I'm using Chile and Brazil as an example because those two countries have inflation too, and they are from our area. So I think we have to become aware of the fact that this is a long-term battle. We have to persist, and it depends on many things. Juan Liach, an economist I admire, wrote a few days ago a very good article about the bi-monetarism as one of the big diseases we have in Argentina, using the dollar to assess things, to save, even to make certain transactions. This cannot be neglected. I'm not saying we have to bring it forcefully because this will not work. I think a significant step was to legalize our savings abroad. We have not brought them back, but at least now it's legal. In order to bring those dollars back, we need to open up our economy so that we can use that money to import capital goods or whatever. We have to bear that in mind. Those dollars cannot be acquired by the central bank through the issuing of money, because that will lead to hyperinflation. They have to be bought by government, by treasury, or they have to be used to import. This is a third alternative that we Argentinians have resorted to several times, and that is not a solution. We have to create chaos enough for people to want to take their money out. But that is not the solution. That's keeping along the mediocrity. Now, I was wondering, as regards this by currency philosophy, Mr. Kovadlov will close this morning, and you can ask him about this. To what extent is this by currency approach not the consequence of a political system where the alternative of an authoritarian populism to me is the unsustainable political solution that seems acceptable in the short term, but that is not sustainable in the long term. It is living with more than you have. This is typical of a country that defines itself as a rich country, and that an authoritarian is where if this does not work, rather than correct things, I will expropriate things, I will restrict your rights, I will place obstacles. I will expropriate things to keep feeding this idea. So the alternative is to go back to a populist authoritarianism. And maybe this is why we're condemned to having this by-currency model. And I'm thinking of this because I think maybe the big challenge for the next administration will be to eradicate, to do away with the political alternative of a monetary populism and have Republican alternatives that may be leftist or rightist, but leaving authoritarian populism out, because this is what explains the lack of investments and this by-currency approach. And if you push me further, I could even tell you that many other problems that have not been solved over the last 4 years, the fact that these problems have not been solved is due to the fact that there is still an authoritarian populism alternative alive. So we're not only measuring what's happening now, but what may happen in 4, 6, or 6 years' time. And as long as we have this possibility of the return of authoritarian populism, many investments will not be made in Argentina. And without investments, achieving macroeconomic stability is much more difficult with the higher social cost. So I think this has to be discussed and analyzed. So if you think that this bipartisan approach may be useful from a voting point of view, then you're not thinking in the long term. This is why Banco Nación, Argentina's national bank, insists, and you're sick of listening to me, that we want to offer dollars. There is something that I think is quite wrong. Banks are offering 1.5% rates for deposits in dollar, which is the same that is being offered by banks in New York. Why don't we offer 3, 4, or 5% to attract them? And the reason is that central bank restricts the placement of dollars. So only exporting companies can do that, and as an exception, energy and cattle breeding companies can get dollars, but we're not allowed to lend dollars to other industries. I understand the reasons because I've been there. I understand why the central bank is afraid of that, because I remember what happened in 2001 with a mega devaluation, the banks at the point of bankruptcy. But we have to start moving this limit, and this is a huge challenge. We have to accept this by currency model and have an economy where there could be, at least initially, more loans in dollars. And Argentina's national bank, if you have any project where you can access dollars, we have quite reasonable rates at 7 to 10 years loans. So we have really good rates. This is key. I justify the lack of funding and the funding cost as the other side of the Argentinian coin, because we save 80% of our savings abroad. And the title of the panel also includes inclusion. Juan said something about B system. I said this 2 years ago when I had to talk about Banco Nación as the ethics banking system. Banking allows for speculation and stingy banking we see in the literature, and the Yunus Bank or St. Francis of Assisi Bank. This is all banking. Bankers can be in one side or the other. So Banco Nación has to play what's called the ethics banking in Europe, inclusive and sustainable banking. I talked about this 2 years ago, and I think it's extremely important to point out that we have to be a bank with values. But I don't mean real estate value, but values as we understand that term in English. Banco Nación should be inclusive, sustainable, and federal. Inclusive because we believe that financial inclusion is the way to social inclusion. And I'm proud of the fact that the funding policy for micro-entrepreneurs who are not so small, loans that are on average 250,000 pesos, 42,000 loans have already been granted, and in every branch of our bank, there is one person whose job is to go out, to leave the bank and go and find micro-entrepreneurs, because micro-entrepreneurs will not come to our bank. So this person's instruction is to leave his or her suit in the office and to go out and find micro-entrepreneurs. I charge my energy visiting my branches and asking these people to tell me about the loans that have called their attention. It's amazing, not just people making empanadas or ceramic in the north or Airbnb because they are using a room in their home to receive tourists. There are all kinds of examples. It's very good to share that because there is entrepreneurship all over. I know I'm getting to the end of my time. We only have 20 more minutes to share some thoughts among all of us. Let us not fall into the trap of simplifying things and saying Argentina is trained for agri-industry, bioenergy, bioeconomy. Argentina can give us lots of surprises because of its business capacity. Genetically, we have the boldness and the talent because many of us have grandparents or great-grandparents who have been bold enough to cross the Atlantic. And it shouldn't call our attention the fact that there are 5 Argentinian unicorns and none of them are in the agri-industry. So let us not simplify things. We obviously have resources for agri-industry, for energy, but let us not neglect the great creativity we have in Argentina. Let us be open to generate the conditions, because I'm pretty sure that new entrepreneurs will come up, and that new generation of micro-entrepreneurs in Argentina that is open, that is inserted in the rest of the world, is not looking for subsidies, is what we need to turn the page and leave 70 years of stagnation behind. Thank you very much. We will now answer some questions from the audience and some questions we have. And I will start with you, Javier, since you're already trained. You've already warmed up. I hope this will be the Argentina of development with Vaca Muerta, entrepreneurship. What's the role of banking in general terms? What should be the difference between the public and the private banking sector? And is the banking sector prepared? Do you want to be prepared? Because you can also tell me that's not the game we want to play. The private and public banking sector has to be focused on productive banking, inclusion. In the case of Argentina's National Bank, we have to do what the private banks do not do. We have to go to middle to low-class sectors to fund home purchases. We have to go to those areas where the banking sector is not present. And we also have to go to micro-entrepreneurs who are not enrolled in the IRS system. We can even lend money to those people up to 500,000 pesos, and will not request the last 3 financial statements to do that. In the private banking sector, I'm very familiar with it, it's also the result of the lack of stability, inflation, and so it has little practice in funding productive activity. Unfortunately, because of my age, I've witnessed this deterioration of the Argentinian banking system, because cooperatives were chased at the end of the 60s and 70s, 600 credit associations were closed, then in the 90s, the provincial banking sector was privatized, and I have a very bad opinion of that system because productive activity was neglected. And most of what we do at Banco Nación, I'm seeing this in Santa Fe, where we have also tried to become financial agents. One of the roles of Banco Nación has been to compensate the lack of a federal banking system, trying to grow in the provinces, trying to fund productive activities, which are the activities that justify the existence of Banco Nación. In 1891, Mr. Carlos Pellegrini said this bank is to fund productive activity, especially the small producers who do not get services from the private banks. But we also have to create the conditions for the private banking to understand that they're not there just to buy bonds or offer short-term loans. But this is a process that is very much linked to macroeconomic stability, trust, and these are things that will be achieved very gradually. 70 years of unbalance in inflation cannot be solved in a few years. We have to become aware of this. We have to be patient, and we have to bet on continuity in this vicious circle. And going back to savings, 80% of our savings are abroad, and we are accountable for that because we do not trust our own currency. This is a result of many years of economic hardships. How can you leave this situation behind. 15 years ago, I should have registered the title so that I will be paid royalty every time someone uses that term. No shortcuts. That's a key. No shortcuts. And I love it when people use this idiom because we've been doing things using shortcuts. Different plans and programs over the last 40 years, they've all failed because they look like magic plans. The only real way out is, as our president says, with the truth on the table, step by step, creating the conditions to build trust, progress, productivity. And we have to leave magic solutions behind. Dollarization, taking zeros out of our currency, the different programs we have had that would solve the apparent things but not the basic things. The basic things are related to the fiscal aspect, but that's a consequence. There's an excess public expenditure, but excess public expenditure is also a consequence of the lack of productivity. We have to live with what we have, going back to the values we had 100 years ago. In 1919, in the Spanish Encyclopedia Dictionary, the definition of Argentina was a country that's going to be so rich that it's going to compete with the U.S. in global leadership. 100 years ago, what were values? Austerity, productivity, working hard, and not believing that we were a rich country. I think there are no magic solutions, no magic bullets. If you want to solve 70 years of decadence in 3 or 4 years, then you're wrong. No country with a 50% inflation rate was able to go down to 5 to 85 years. It took Peru 18 years. It took Chile over 15 years. So we Argentinians need to understand that this is something that has to be done step by step for many years to recover trust in our currency, trust in ourselves. And this is why it is key to leave shortcuts aside. Santiago, don't think you will be able to evade my question about the check. I hope you will be able to go and cash that check. What would you like Argentina to do with that check? Are we politicians, business people, labor unions, are we all prepared for that big check? It is difficult to answer that question. It would be too daring on my part. I think all of us have dreamed, and some of us have faced the situation. What would happen if somebody tomorrow gave you a lot of money, not a little money, a lot of money? It's true that lots of things are shaken by this. First of all, as Javier said, let us not use this as a shortcut for solutions that require a long time and hard work. But we're very good at doing that. Because we have burned many checks, we have burned many checks. This is not the first time we get a legacy. We are heirs of something, but this new opportunity we're given as any society. What I recommend, quite humbly, is 2 or 3 things, and this is the ideal environment to share this with friends, people who know it's time, effort, and resiliency. And those things that are worth a lot cost a lot too. So my first piece of advice is Vaca Muerta is not a strictly energetic problem. It's not a strictly energetic problem for 50 to 100 companies. Unlike your productive cluster, your cluster groups 200 to 300,000 SMEs. But there's life there. a new embodied of life. But it's different in the case of Vaca Muerta. Vaca Muerta is a very small club. In a way, we, the society, I'm saying this from Vaca Muerta point of view, society should request or demand that they play a part, they play a role there. It's not something for the energy sector only. This is not an opportunity for that region only, for Neuquén. This is something for the whole country. And the approach should be federal, too. This is not something for now only. It's also going to affect the next generations. We're not the ones who develop that knowledge. We got this from thousands of years of history, and we're forced to leave this for future generations. And in this respect, I think, well, I loved what Roberto said. Vaca Muerta should give life, strength, and wisdom and opportunities to Vaca Viva, the living cow. And I honestly believe that the best way to honor that promise and that hope is by participating, by being part of that discussion, so that there will be supplementary points of view and interest. And believe me that there are those supplementary interests and visions. This society has a lot to say, to contribute and to support the Vaca Muerta community. And the Vaca Muerta community should be smart and humble enough to accept all your experience, everything you have achieved over the last 30 years or more. So it would be very good. It would help us a lot to get closer to Norway and further away from Venezuela. There should be a synthesis, and we hope that we should bet on the future going through here, our minds, our knowledge, our innovation, research, and not the exploitation of resources with no value, added value, etc. I'd like to go a little bit further, because Vaca Muerta and Vaca Viva, the dead cow, the living cow concept is very important. It's been very hard for the agricultural sector to integrate itself to the industry. Now we have agri-industry, farming, fishing. But anyway, I'd like to know how you see this looking forward. What do you think can be done as to knowledge exchange? How can we join our strengths? Well, you've all lived this. There are different areas. First of all, this community, the farming agri-industrial community, is our flag in the face of the rest of the world. So symbolically, we are representative of Argentina. Secondly, this community has also worked very hard in adding value. When I discuss this with my colleagues and investors, to simplify, I tell them Vaca Muerta is, don't kill me, it's the discovery of soybean, discovery of genetic breeding, etc. Now, are we going to produce beans only, or the whole value added that Vaca Muerta brings about? Vaca Muerta should force us to take out of our country not oil or gas, but a lot of added value. As I said in my introduction, this is the opportunity to embrace our regional communities. We have a great opportunity to recover, to strengthen our bonds with Chile and Brazil. And this would be a deep and final hug. We have to embrace these countries. It would be very productive for them to really count on us too. That's a logical hug or embrace. In China, well, we've been talking about China, but this primary hug is much more logical. We first need this regional hug, which is almost mandatory. Roberto, I think there's a virtuous cycle here. What do you think? Well, first of all, I'd like to quote Cortázar. Your age is the age you play, the age you show. 3 comments on biodiversity within the pen. Vaca muerta, vaca viva, vaca litio. I think we should consider the price system of 2030. And we should bear that in mind to know what the bets will be. Because it's a short-term bet, but it's a long-term path. That's fundamental to think of the future. Secondly, Vaca Viva, that is the living cow, did not get this legacy overnight. It's a fund that you have to access every 180 days and show that you know what you're doing. And they also know that that trust, which is nature, has to be looked after and has its limits. So the expansion of $25 billion that you are going to invest and that we want to invest will not be necessarily because of border expansion, but maybe intensification. Let's go for precision agriculture, AgTech, young people with a backpack and earrings. And the other solution is verticalization or the industrialization of biologics. Common points. I perceive that there are many people working in the metal mechanics sector, and the second generation is already thinking of how to provide AgTech and equipment to Vaca Muerta. There is a lot of Italian creativity there because most of the family names are Italian, even though there are some Germans too. That is the basis, provided both cows will go backwards. I think we have to explore those things quite carefully. And finally, we also have to be careful about the following. There are 2 key issues. These are political and ideological positions, which I think match what Javier said. The price of food and the price of energy, if we're integrated and we go for global models, need an international reference map. It is impossible to separate local from international prices. This does not mean that I do not believe in Argentinians, but I believe in them from 2 points of view. Those who sit at the table need to have the necessary income to sit at the table, and that income depends on a much more dense production matrix that generates more jobs. It's not giving away food. That's a temporary, understandable shortcut, but it cannot be a long-term solution. So finally, I would say that prices have to reflect, in a way, the international scarce resources, both in energy and in food. If the prices are too low, the bioenergy will not come up. If bioenergy is not poor, so you will not have variety economy. I believe that's a way to go. Thank you. Well, thank you, Juan. We can close our panel with your thoughts I'd like to hear your thoughts about this with the youngest in the panel. Well, I started saying that I was here to learn from them, so I thank you for this exchange. When I talked about generation change, I meant that because we are an organization where everyone's younger than 40, and I'm 35. I don't want to be fired. I just want to prepare the younger generations. Many organizations need younger people. And cultural change has to happen in organizations where there is collective work rather than individual work. But, well, undoubtedly, I can bring my spirit, my learning, but it's much less than his. He created his own company when he was 40. But I believe in supplementing what we do, and I hope that in the next Juventus we will also have a 20-year-old kid here who can share his way of thinking. Undoubtedly, the way to go is knowledge. I'm not a specialist, but economic power is changing in the world. Now it's going to knowledge-based companies. So I think agri-industry has an opportunity there. AgTech, bioeconomy. Agricultural farmers will no longer be the farmers who would go and check things, but the ones who can see everything on their cell phones. Yesterday, a friend of mine who is an advisor works with 50 different companies, and he told me, my everyday job has already changed. I'm using AgTech, and rather than fearing this, we have to see this as an opportunity, because in short here, we have lots of agricultural engineers who are talents, and we need them to generate knowledge, and that is the opportunity agri-industry and bioeconomy has. Thank you, Juan. Well, we will have another panel after the break. And finally, we will close our meeting with Santiago Kovadlov. And the idea is to take our thought down to earth, to concrete concepts, so that we are all clear as to what we can do. Thank you very much, everyone.